Okay, in this video you'll be presented with an alternative on how to turn a three-dimensional solid into a two-dimensional multi-view. This is going to be an alternative to the SOLVIEW and SOLDRAW commands you'll learn in class, which are pretty handy for quickly turning a 3D solid into a multi-view drawing. However, it's sort of a quirky set of commands, and there are a few things that can go wrong, and it takes a little while to learn. I found what I think is a good alternative, which is the Flatshot command, which essentially is looking at a three-dimensional solid that you have at whatever angle you're viewing it at, and it will press it into a two-dimensional block. This is a little bit different from the SOLVIEW and SOLDRAW commands in that SOLVIEW and SOLDRAW will sort of create a two-dimensional wireframe view of one of the sides and sort of just impose that on the side of the block. The other thing that SOLVIEW and SOLDRAW will do that Flatshot does not is they'll actually set up a variety of layers based on, if you're calling a view your front view or whatever, it'll set up a layer for dimensions, hidden, and visible lines for your front view, which it will essentially freeze all of the other layers it doesn't like, such as your right side or your left side or your top, so that only the things you want to see in the front view will show up. So Flatshot is probably just a little bit more tedious, but I think it's pretty simple to use, and there's a little bit more freedom for editing things how you want them to show up. So I'll go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is I've got myself a just sort of a simple three-dimensional block that's got a variety of different features, which will give me some different hidden lines. If I show it in wireframe, you can see I've got a square hole that goes through the top, a cylindrical hole that bores through the side, and then I've got this little groove in the top and another cylinder cut out on the side over here. So I will go back to shaded with edges. So I will start out in the front view. So to use the Flatshot command, I'm just going to type Flatshot. Okay, so the default it will come up as is insert as a new block. I'd prefer to save these things as a file so that I can access them later if I need to redo this multi-view. Instead of having them all be in the same file, I'm going to have a separate drawing file. So I'll export to a file, and I will, let's see, I'll just put it in my Engineering 25 videos folder. I will call this block front. Save that. Okay, so foreground lines are your visible lines. Again, the default will come up as by layer or by block. And so rather than setting up layers, you can essentially just set up the colors that you want things to show up as. So for my visible lines, my foreground lines, I want them to be cyan, line type continuous. I want to make sure I have, for a simple object like this, that I want to show details for the hidden lines. I'm going to make sure I hit show for obscured lines. Color magenta, line type, I had to go into other and load the hidden line type and then select OK. And then including tangential edges, we're going to go ahead and select that for now. I've got an example on the difference between whether or not we're going to include them. That will affect how this filleted edge I've got in this corner will show up. So I'll go ahead and hit create. So now I need one for the, well, I'll go ahead and put that in so we can see the difference. So I'm looking at my front in the object. This object happens to be 10 inches wide and 6 inches tall from how we can see it in this angle. So I'll go find that block I just made, block front. I'll hit open. And there we go. We can see that if I superimpose this block over top, it's the same exact size. All of the visible and hidden lines line up correctly. But if I rotate myself around, we can see that the block that it made for the flat shot is in 2D, while my actual block is 3 dimensions. So there is that tangential edge that I created, which is showing the bottom of this filleted edge. Okay, so I'll delete that for now. So now I'll make one for the top view. Oops. Top. So I'll type Flatshot again. This time I'm going to save it as block top. Again, tangential edges I'd like to include. Same colors, it'll all be the same. So I'll create one there. I think it's going to be better if I show a left view rather than a right view to show the detailing on this hole over here rather than having more hidden lines. And then one last view, I'll do a isometric. Oops. Okay. One thing to think about when you're doing a flat shot of an isometric, depending on how many hidden lines or details, you may not want to show obscured lines. However, I'm going to go ahead and show them, and then we can actually edit those lines later. So I will create that. Whoops. Go save that where I've been placing the other ones. I'll call this block isometric. Save that guy. Hit create. Okay, so I could be entering these things in the same drawing file, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to create it in a separate drawing file. So I've got one open already. I'm going to go ahead and insert. I'm going to go find my blocks. So I'll start out with the left block. Hit open. We can see that it was grabbing things from the origin where my other block was located. So when I insert my left block, it's grabbing from the bottom right corner, which is fine. So I'll just, doesn't have to be perfect, so I'll put it there. Insert my next block. The other thing that I like about the Flatshot command is that it allows me to easily line up the different views of the multi-view, space them out appropriately. So I'll put in my front. I'm just going to put it, I'll say 2 out from that side. Insert the top. Go 2 up from there. And then one last block that I'd like to insert is I should put in the isometric one. And there it is. So there's my isometric. You can see it's got kind of an excessive amount of hidden lines. And I maybe don't think I need all that detailing from the hidden lines. Like I think maybe this groove in the top of the block is pretty obvious. So maybe I don't need a hidden line for that. And I certainly don't need this hidden line in the back. But for the isometric, I'd like to show the what's going on where these two holes intersect. So what I can do is I can just explode this block, and so now I've got loose lines. And at this point, I can, if I wanted to add these lines to the appropriate layers for my hidden and visible object layers, I could do that. That's actually not necessary since we've already created the colors that our plot style table is going to recognize. So I'll just sort of clean up some of these hidden lines. Get rid of all the ones I think I don't need. Okay, so one more. Okay, so I cleaned up this isometric just a little bit, so now I can see I don't really have too much detail, but I can see what's going on.